I am the president of Lambton Federation of Agriculture. Gary Martin was former president for 3 years, I guess, and for January, like you know. And appreciate you all coming out. Hope those of you that went to Cargill earlier. I know I enjoyed the tour. Been a lot of elevators in the past, but it's always interesting to see one of that scale. No question. This is what our agenda will look like tonight. Yeah, I guess everything's there. And like I say, we'll just kind of have a break here at some point when the food comes, and we'll pick up where we left off. So,
Brian, you got to say, do you have to have somebody approve the agenda? Do you have to have somebody approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda. I saw a motion to move the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Gary Martin.
Thanks, Gary. I need a seconder.
State your name if you want to second
George
it.
Dickinson.
George Dickinson.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. This is an official meeting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and now we're kind of coming out of COVID, but you know, through COVID and still going on, we still have regular monthly meetings. It's amazing how many things we still have to talk about, how many activities that are still ongoing. You know, some of the most recent items, we had a bus tour happen in June, and you know, we're going to have a little discussion about some of that later. You know, back in the winter, we teamed up with the Medicine Federation, had a fun spiel and did a social event around that. A lot of different meetings with municipal officials. That's taken up a considerable amount of time regarding. You know, I know Kristen will spend some time on it later, I'm certain, but some of the things that are happening in our province are very concerning to the agriculture community. And so we spent a tremendous amount of time, did a number of presentations, had a lot of help from Kristen and Karen, trying to make sure that our municipal officials are very aware of what agriculture does for this community and you know, what kind of impact it has and how they should make sure they consider it. We maybe aren't the largest taxpayers in any county, but we certainly have a big impact. And then the other item is that we welcome a new treasurer. I don't know if Alicia's here tonight or not. No, okay. So, yeah, it was in April, I guess, when she started, and she's been doing a great job for us. So one of the things that we do is we promote, or we fund and run, mostly I think Gary does probably more than anybody, but the locally Lambton map. I think we're on, I don't know whether it was version 7 or version 8 now. We've done a significant amount of printed maps in the past. That's something we've kind of got away from. It's just, we literally have changed every month. And for those of people, I shouldn't say that don't know what local Lambton is, it's a method that we do to communicate with people that different, a lot of farmers markets, different places you can tour, you know, play farms, etc. Different things that are attractions and things that you can do in Lambton County. Certainly a lot of it is related to agriculture. I wouldn't want to say it's 100%, but that's certainly our theme. And like I said, we've printed maps in the past. I think we've still got a couple thousand of them. Somebody wants one. But you know, the problem is it just becomes so outdated quickly. So we haven't printed maps in a while. But we continue to keep our website up to date. And you know, we just had, I think we had 3 new people join us in the last month. So it's we don't have the website here, but we're happy. I think it's just localyLambton.com. Yeah, localyLambton.com. And you can get to it off of our Lambton Federation Today website. Really hope that people will take a minute, have a look at it. There's a lot of information.
And it's mobile friendly.
The other thing we do, yes, and then we've, one of the things, actually, one of the local Lambton web signs, I should say, we're down at the entrance when you come in tonight. You'll see those at all of our member sites, window signs, and so on and so forth, so you know that they're on that map. The other thing that we talk about doing every month is doing our monthly radio spot. You know, those of us that still listen to the radio can hear all the things that are happening, and just a place to try and share some information. One thing I guess I'd really like to say associated to this event that we really appreciate the feedback. Good, bad, or indifferent. It's nice to hear from our members. Nice to hear from people. You know, always encourage you to bring your concern forward, whatever it is, and you know, and give us something to act on if it's something that we need. Brooke, did you want to?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay.
So if you don't know me, my name is Brooke Watson, and I'm the administrator with the LFA. I'm just going to give you an update on farm safety, and George is going to correct me if I speak out of turn here. So the annual meeting was held February 2nd, and Russ Lloyd from the Sarnia Fire Department speaking about grain entrapment, and then that extended into training for more firefighters on grain entrapment. Diane Bergsma discussed the Three Oaks cabin, the respite cabin that is available for first responders and farmers. Joanne Fuller also spoke in her the new Farmer Wellness Initiative and the mental health resources provided through OFA. March 22nd was the special meeting, and that was held out in Lambton, Wyoming, for anybody that attended. And Krista from Farm and Food Care spoke about handling both visitors that are wanted and unwanted on farm property. There was a presentation by Dennis Kramer from Lambton Mutual on fire safety. Did I go too ready? Okay.
Sorry, was there another one there? Okay.
Perfect. All right, so displays at local events. There's a list there. They're really promoting a lot to do with farm safety at different events around all of the county. So Forest Bike Rodeo, Community Safety Day out in Port Lambton, the Elvinston Rodeo, Steam Thrashers Reunion, the Lambton County Plowing Match, both Wyoming and Britain in the classroom, and videos that will be displayed at all the fall fairs in our area. Annual Safety Day was out in Petrolia on July 6th. 222 participants went through 13 stations, and the different topics were recorded and videoed for later use in some of these initiatives that are here on the slide. Each participant that came in received a lunch, a take-home bag, and a reflective vest. My children make fun of me because I wear one when I walk my dogs at night, so they're great, and the LFA helped sponsor that. The YouTube channel, it's available and being developed. There's also a website being developed, so it's going to house all these videos and everything that are being developed for farm safety. All sessions of the Farm Safety Day were recorded, like I mentioned, and then other safety videos have been created. They are on YouTube now. They're on the LFA channel as well. If you needed to know where those were, great videos, make sure you guys check them out.
I just wanted to highlight that as Brooke mentioned, we had a sponsor, Blue Water Power, which allowed us to hire Frameworks Media to tape every session at Farm Safety Day. So those will be available, and they are on. We do have sticks for any business or schools or anything that have the 7 little short films that we've done before. The new ones have voices. The 7 other ones are just if anyone needs one, talk to myself or Eric.
So hands to table, if you've been at our meetings, you've heard me say hands to table for a few years now. We're on round 4.
Yes.
We're on round 4 of hands to table. And this is an amazing initiative. Middlesex County participates in it as well. And what this does is it partners a local producer with a restaurant in our area. So you'll see in these partnerships somebody providing the food and then somebody preparing the food. So hands2table.ca is the website. There's social media for it as well. And you will find a list of partnerships of local businesses. Make sure you check them out. There's just some ones that you may not have heard of. And it's a really good initiative. Like I said, Middlesex County participates in it as well. You can see all the partners that are listed there. So part of the Revive Fund.
I spoke about our bus tour that was in June. This was what so the OFA has something they call a Revive Fund that will pay a significant portion of something that they have approved to help support agriculture. So what we did is we were able to coordinate this bus. We went around to 4 stops that kind of showcase local agriculture and offered up to municipal politicians to take them around and show them the impact of agriculture in our community. The OFA was helped share the cost on this, and turned out to be a great event. Probably before I got off the bus, I had at least a half a dozen to say, when are we doing it next year? So it actually is a very good initiative. We're definitely go. Appreciate it. I think we've done it 3 times in the past, and then because of COVID, we kind of had a little hiatus, but this year we're back at it, and it's still great. Some other organizations that we support are, Brooke, I think you did the mental health distribution,
Yes.
or mental health cards. And I think we specifically what we were trying to do was, we were targeting first responders, we were targeting a number of areas in some of these events, but with the mental health, through the OFA and through a couple of other organizations that do a lot of promotion of mental health, and we're trying to help that out with the OFA. I think we've got 8 different food bank donations that we make now, but all various local food banks in the county, we make donations to them. Obviously 4-H, we make significant contribution in a number of ways. All the various county fairs, already spoke about Lambton farm safety. One of the different donations that we made was the developmental services. They were collecting donations related to getting a different accessible vehicle. And then another was the the food hamper program and the Christmas fair. We talked about a couple of these already, but we talked about the monthly radio spot. And of course, everything is always available on our website. We have the AgLink newsletter that we don't have per se a regular distribution. We distribute that a few times a year depending on what events are going on. Again, if you have something that you'd like to see added on to this, just let us know. We'd be happy to put it on. We talked about the mental health card distribution at some of the various Italians barbecue and various different events. If there is something that or someone or some area, some event that you think that would benefit, we'd love to hear from you. Active in the social media channels, and then of course our website. Some of the other things that we support this year is we still, the Airport Action Committee and our working group is still somewhat ongoing. One of the big events last year, sort of related to the airport, was our helipad sponsorship. Talked about supporting Hands to Table. I mentioned it previously, but speaking to Sarnia City Council, also spoke to guess we call it the Lambton County Council, I guess is that what they call themselves, St. Clair Township Council. Attended a bunch of different meetings at different county and city meetings related to battery storage. That's been a significant topic here that came up earlier this year. And one of the certain highlights is the Lambton County Agricultural Hall of Fame. George Dickinson and Ann Dickinson were nominated this year, and they're certainly extremely excellent recipients for that award. We are certainly always interested in having new members. It's a board that maybe there's a lot of people don't realize is very open. We really interested in getting new people on. We've got a number of student directors. There's a number of committees that we sponsor, and we'd love to hear from you if you feel that you're interested in this. Yes, we should say that we typically meet virtually. We get together a couple times a year, depending on what's going on, but our monthly meetings we always hold them virtually. It's just turned out to be a much easier way to make everybody to be able to commit and participate. A couple of upcoming things. Obviously one here is the Lambton County Clown Match. It's coming up, I guess, in a little over a week. The Farmer Wellness Initiative is an ongoing event that I don't know if we have anything coming up here directly in Lambton, but maybe Kristen might speak about it later. And the Lambton Federation's annual general meeting will be in January. We will make announcements as to when that will be, time and date. One of the things that has been a significant contributor, I guess, to activities this year has been the new hydro transmission lines coming through St. Clair Township. But obviously, it's going down from Chatham up to basically the site of the former land generating station. Personally, I've had quite a bit of activities associated with hydro and landowner relations and so on and so forth. I think it was May is when they announced the actual, I guess, 1st of June, when they announced the actual route. It's going to be what was picked as Road 2 drivers previously. The primary thing you need to know here is that it's the the current 115 kilovolt line. Most of that line is going to be dismantled and then replaced with a new line. There is a couple slight deviations and so on, but a little over 80% of the existing footprint of that line is going to be the same. A couple things to note that we are currently in what they call a pre-construction phase. So a lot of property owners have been contacted and various information has been given out. Meetings have happened with all the individual landowners. We've had some various different ad hoc meetings and so on. Coming up this fall, or coming shortly, is so they're actually in the status right now of doing archaeological assessments. A lot of activity on side roads and so on and so forth. There is from probably the next most significant item will be starting in November. They are going to be doing the property assessments, and that's when actual offers will be made to people about what the easement will be and how many amount of dollars and so on and so forth. This is just an idea of what type of, or where we're at in the timeline. As I had said, I guess previous year, that we've got 3 specific phases. The next 2.5 years, 3 years will be this pre-construction phase. Then probably 2026 is when we will get into the line removal and the actual new construction. The southern half of the line, that's from Walsford to Chatham, is going to happen first. And then the north half, once they're completed, all new lines up, then it'll come into Lambton County. And then there'll be a post-construction phase. That's when anything else that happened, whether it be tile damage, compaction, those other things will be addressed at that point. Just to kind of talk about the timeline of where they're at and their routes and their information. I've talked about this a couple times before, and I guess I would, all I would say is that if you've got questions, please reach out. Well, I'm very, are we, yeah, are we just, yeah, one. Yeah, maybe we'll just take a break. Supper should be up momentarily, and then we continue.
I'll kickstart the event again. So for those who don't know me, my name is Kristen Coleman, and I'm the director for Lambton Middlesex, and I'm also vice president on the OFA. And as most of you know, OFA represents 38,000 farm families, and we're the biggest general farm organization in the province. In fact, we're the biggest general farm organization in Canada. So that's something to be proud of. Next is a little introduction and some comments from our president, Peggy. Should run as a video.
Just click on it. Put the microphone there. Yeah.
In a nutshell, Peggy's saying, well, this is really good. Congratulations, thanks everybody for being here. Technology is wonderful. So we focus on a few key priorities and go over briefly. We've got sustainability, consumer trust, farm viability, and farmers as advocates and leaders, and that's what all of you are just by being here today. You're leaders within your communities. And all of you and all of us contribute to the goal of farms and food forever, which is our goal. So some of our priorities are things like supply chain resiliency and labor. Labor has been an issue for everybody, and we recognize that, and we've talked with the government about that on numerous occasions. And farm labor can also be a pathway to permanent residency in Canada. In fact, one of the Federations did a bus tour with food influencers, and a number of them are from the Philippines. And I asked the college professors who were there, do they all go back to the Philippines or their country of origin, or do they stay here? And he said most of them will stay in Canada because it's a pathway to permanent residency. And agriculture could be that same pathway because we are in a labor shortage. We also talk about responsible land use planning. And we've been urging municipalities, and Brian mentioned it earlier, we've talked to different counties, the city of Sarnia as well, about staying within the urban boundaries and building up, not out. We only have 11.4 million acres of land in Ontario that can be used for agricultural purposes. We lose 319 acres a day right now to other uses, whether it's housing, industry, commercial, taken out of production. At that rate of loss, if it stays the way it is, we won't have any more farmland in 100 years. So we can't afford to take that risk. But what worries me more than just losing all our farmland in 100 years is that in anywhere from 30 to 40 years, at that rate of loss, we would probably be dependent on other provinces or countries to feed Ontario. And that's a worrisome thing when you look at international food supplies. When you look at India, who is no longer going to export rice, they're keeping it for their own population. So when you start to see nations using food as something they're going to retain rather than export, that should be a worry, and that should be a wake-up call to make sure that we protect our farmland. We also look at rural and social infrastructure such as natural gas and broadband. And broadband's expanded quite a bit. It has been successful with our lobbying, and it's been in conjunction with other companies and other groups. So we recognize that we don't do things alone, we do it with others. And then, of course, we've advocated for mental health and continue to do so. And I'll touch on that a little more later on. And road safety is the other one that we do. Educating municipal councils and public on the slow-moving vehicles on the roads, what we do, what we have. But farmers have a responsibility to play also. We have to be aware that our lights have to be working properly. Our SMV signs that we have to extinguish tonight is one example of a really bad SMV sign over there. Those are the kind of things that we have, that we can do to make the roads safer and ourselves safer. I did a presentation at the Ontario Roads Association conference this year on road safety and farmer safety. My son-in-law in 2019 had a serious accident, was hit by a car, he was thrown from the tractor, and he still hasn't been able to work because of the injuries that he suffered. So I'm quite familiar with some of the issues of road safety. So some of the challenges that we face are farmland preservation, as I mentioned, the fertilizer tariff, the rising cost of inflation, carbon pricing, and the federal fuel surcharge, as well as trespass, biosecurity activism. So those are all some of the issues that we face regularly, that we continue to lobby government on. And of course, inflation, we're not immune to that either. So the weaker Canadian dollar, the labor shortages that we've got, all of these add to the compounded problems that we face and the challenges we face. And supply chain adds to that. But it's not all negative. We've progressed in a number of areas. For example, the farmland severances. The government has proposed 3 severances per farm. And OFA, along with all the commodity groups, beef, pork, poultry, dairy, a number of different commodity groups, lobbied the government heavily on this, and they reversed it. The challenge of having lots severed off your farm, it can sterilize the amount of livestock production you can have. And also it can create innumerable problems with neighbors. One of the farmers I know who lives down in Binbrook in the Hamilton area has houses backing up onto a field that they cultivate sandalwood. One of the first things he has to do is go out and get garbage off the field every year because people just toss it over the fence. He also at one point was spraying his field, and he said somebody came over with a gun to try and get him to stop him. Now I don't think anything happened beyond that. The guy was trying to scare him from spraying, which didn't work. But those are the challenges you get if you sever off land from the farm and have people coming to live there. Because most severed lots, if they're for retirement purposes, most people are only in there for 3 to 5 years on average maximum, and it gets sold to somebody else. That's when the problem starts. It's not the first owner, it's the second and third owners. The fertilizer tariff dollars that I spoke about just a minute ago is $34.1 million that the federal government collected on it. And we, along with the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, lobbied heavily on that to try and get the money back to agriculture in one form or another. And so what the federal government finally did was they put the money towards the On-Farm Climate Action Fund for fertilizer-related projects in Eastern Canada, because it was Eastern Canada that paid. But it also had a ripple effect, because people in Western Canada, talking to counterparts there, ended up having higher fertilizer costs because of the tariff in Ontario over that. So it really had a major effect. We've also talked to the government about the veterinary shortages and the Veterinarians Act. The Act had not been updated in over 30 years, and parliamentary assistant Rob Flack has been out touring the province, looking about learning to find out how to modernize it, to allow vet techs to do more, to allow more telehealth, or same as they do for humans, only in this case it would be the livestock, and also to increase the number of veterinarians generally. And I had the opportunity to talk to the president of the University of the Welfare Function, and we talked about veterinary shortages. And one of the challenges that she told me that they have is the lack of spaces. It's not that they don't want to produce more vets and have more vets to operate, it's just that they didn't have the funding and the spaces. Fortunately, the government responded, and I believe starting next year there'll be 20 additional spots for veterinarians, and they're running a program between Thunder Bay's Lakehead University as well. And part of the reason for that is that the North is chronically understaffed and shortages of veterinarians. extremely hard to get a veterinarian. In fact, in Thunder Bay, I was reading that even if you have a dog or a cat, if you don't have a vet, you're going to have to drive to places like Dryden, which is about 4 hours away, to get a vet. That's how difficult it is in the north. We know how difficult it is here. It's already very hard. There are no veterinarians, no general vets in my county. That's what I do. So Bill 97, which was, it's always been a bit contentious for us, but we had a lot of support in our work against, not against, but in our work with the government on this. We had a letter writing campaign, and a lot of the local federations responded. So a letter sent in from pretty well every local federation in Ontario, as well as individual farmers and individual board members. And that all makes a difference, because when I've been talking to MPPs about our lobby efforts, they always tell me, well, we always hear from the OFA, but we don't hear from anybody else. So that's where membership comes in. This is the role that everybody needs to play. When we're lobbying the government on your behalf, take a few minutes to send them a note, send them an email. It doesn't have to be lengthy or fancy. In fact, most of them prefer something shorter because they get so many. So send something in all the time, because it comes from you, not just from the OFA itself. The Homegrown campaign is one of the places where we have a petition that people could sign to support land preservation. We have over 71,000 signatures on that petition to date, and we also have 283 municipalities that have supported that effort as well. So that's a pretty substantial number. I mentioned the farmer wellness and mental health. So OFA did a really great job. We were given the contract, I guess you could call it, Joanna Fuller ran with it, as the farmer wellness representative. And we increased the knowledge, or I should say she increased the knowledge of what farmer mental health was, what the program was. And although the agreement was concluded as far as OFA's portion is involved as the official communicator, the Farmer Wellness Initiative is still ongoing and will continue to go. So it's still available 24/7, and the government will be announcing sometime in the fall a new partner who will be doing the communication of the Farmer Wellness Program. But it's still operating, it's still available to anybody who needs to reach out. And actually I was at a conference, not a conference, at the Ottawa Valley Farm Show, and I happened to be working in the Agricultural Wellness Ontario booth, on the wellness booth. The lady came up and started talking to me and Joanne at the time, and said, I just want to tell you how great this program is. She said, my son went to school in Alberta. He left the farm, he left the Ottawa area where her farm was, and he went to school in Alberta. And she said he was really lonely, he was depressed, he came back, I think it was at Christmas time, and he really didn't want to go back to school, he was feeling terrible, really down. And she said, I got him to call the number. And she said he talked to them, and he talked to them several times over the course of the period that he was home. She said, I want to thank you. You guys saved his life. That's how valuable this program is. We've done a lot of engagements over the last year as well. We've exhibited at 17 in-person events or farm shows, sponsored 18 different general meetings and events of industry partners. We've also been at 4 consumer-facing events, such as the Royal Winter Fair, Farm and Food Care Breakfast on the Farm, and we've been for the past 2 years at the Great Farms in Ontario March Classic. All of these are valuable connections that we made, not just with members who are farmers, but with different members of the public who are unaware of what we do, and we can explain why land preservation is so important, why we need sprays, why we don't use as much fertilizer as we used to. People don't understand all the things that we do, and they don't understand the technology, and these are some of the things that we try to put forward to people. We've also been at the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference, the Ontario Good Roads Association, Economic Development Council of Ontario, as well as the recent Association of Municipalities of Ontario. And at these conferences, you meet a lot of municipal leaders, you meet a lot of senior bureaucrats for both municipalities and government. And it's a great opportunity to bring our message to them, and it helps to educate them again about what we do and what we do is important and why it's important. Not just because we say to people, well, yeah, they like to eat. It's more than that. We've also been invited to a number of government announcements, which is also a bit of an indication that OFA plays a pretty senior, important role in all of what government's doing, and they want us there. And that's a good thing. We've also got a number of media outlets that are connecting with our messages in road safety, mental health, as well as access to local food. Local food, particularly during the pandemic, a bit of a shot in the arm. It was great because people wanted to know where their food came from all of a sudden. There was much more interest in food, and perhaps people were doing more cooking at home too. So all of it was a plus in that sense. We also have got a number of viewpoints. Viewpoints are like a news release. They've got they'll be on any number of key priorities, and they can also be on some of the different items, whether it's fall fairs, for example, would be one. But we've also done cybersecurity, and that was also presented at the OFA Research Day. And the Research Day is done by the Research Department, and they do a tremendous job of getting all the information forward. They also did some on labor shortages and supply chain resiliency. So Brian talked earlier about the Revive Fund, and that's another one of those, the pictures that were done here from the Lambton bus tour. And the Revive Fund, what it is the local federation can apply for a maximum of $5,000, which the OFA will help to fund the project, but on a 50-50 cost share basis. So if you're doing a project that costs $10,000, you apply to the Revive Fund, you could be eligible for up to $5,000. That's how the system works. It was a great bus tour last. It went really, really well. We've also done a municipal engagement toolkit with agriculture and plants, which is the impact of agriculture and infographics. That's ideal for counselors particularly, as well as another article, pamphlet called Agriculture Matters, a guide for municipal counselors and staff. And most counselors and staff who have seen it have found that to be extremely useful in their work. This year's convention theme is called Fields of Opportunity, and it will be held November 21st and 22nd at the Delta Airport Conference Center in Toronto. And the photos here are Derek Edwards, who's that guy, who is a comedian, who will be speaking at it, and Kelly Dobson, who was an agricultural leadership speaker, and he'll be speaking as well. We also have Senator Rob Black and John Vantoff, who is the official opposition agriculture critic, speaking, and David Phillips, who's from Environment Ontario, Canada. Some of you may have already heard and seen him on periodically. He's interviewed on CTV about the weather happenings. And of course, the Premier and the Minister of Agriculture have been invited to speak as well. And as usual, we'll have a harvest dinner. So anyway, the last thing I want to say is thank you. Thank you to everybody who is here, but thank you to the local federation as well. Because you're the leaders and your voice is heard, and even though you may sometimes think that the OFA board doesn't hear you or doesn't respond to you, we really do. I remember when I first started on the board, I had people come up to me and say, well, when you go to the policy advisory committee meetings, does the board ever talk about that, or are they just putting in time for one day and then they ignore us? And I said, no. It was an eye-opener for me because, yes, everything that comes from the local federations does hit the board, does hit the agenda, and does get discussed. So never be afraid to bring an issue forward that's important to you, to bring it to me, or to bring it to Brian, or to bring it to Terry. Thank you. I should have introduced Karen over there, members of this representative, but I think most of you probably know. I can't work with any of these people. Right here. Thank
now going to move into our scholarship presentations. These are the 9 different scholarships that the LFA, I should say, manages and hopes to hand out every year. This year we have 8 that we will be handing out. Here's all our various winners. So I guess number 1, we'll start at the top. That's the Joyce Anderson Scholarship, and I'll ask Harold to come.
Move over a little bit.
Next is the Bell One Scholarship, and that's was on this year by Morgan Cassidy. Next is the Patrick and Timothy Kerrigan Scholarship, and that was won this year by Kayla.
Yeah, I don't think Kayla's here.
That's one. Okay. She was unable to attend. Next is the Bell 2 Scholarship, won by Laura Bendu. Next is the Donna Stewart Scholarship, and that was won by Ashley Wood.
I don't think Ashley's here either.
She's here. Yeah, I did. Next is the Rose Wakefield Scholarship, won by Ashley Sawyer. Next is the Women's Institute Scholarship, won by Savannah Morrison. Last is the Bill and Dorothy Abraham Scholarship, won by Katie Ross. I probably should have prefaced the whole conversation to say this is my first year in participating in the selection of scholarships. I cannot say how difficult the job it was. Every entry we had was, I thought was excellent. It was I know there was 5 of us on the call that night. We probably took 3 hours trying to decide who should select, and we had all reviewed them ahead of time. It's excellent. Everyone who applied did it.
I'd like to thank members of the committee as well as Bert McKinley and George Dickinson also on the committee.
Great. Thanks very much, Gary. We're just going to switch and we'll have Dan do a little presentation here.
I'm going to try really hard to not, I walk and I talk. I mostly talk, it's my husband will tell you, but I'm going to try not to knock the machine over. So can everyone hear me clearly? So that's great. So I just want to thank the OFA and especially the LFA for giving me some time here this evening to speak to you about what the programs are that we're offering this year through Ontario Soil and Crop. So I'm here to talk about ducks. My message for you today is about being ready. So what does being ready have to do with ducks? Anybody? Pardon? Ducks in a row. We're going to talk about 4 ducks. And I want you don't have to have them in any specific order, but I want to talk to you about ducks in a row. So the first duck in a row I want to talk about is your workshops. I want you to be ready for the upcoming programs that are going to be going forward and delivered by Ontario Soil and Crop for the farmers of Ontario, but certainly here of Lambton County, because that's where we are today. So we have 2 workshops, environmental farm plan and biosecurity workshops. Biosecurity workshops are in-person workshops, and they're also available online through webinars. So there's lots of opportunity for you to take some time and get those in your hand. Get those certificates in your hand because you'll need them. What I want to talk to you a little bit about these workshops is they have a common theme here. There are voluntary education. It's part of your lifelong learning. Just because you went to school and graduated, you keep learning and learning new things about your farm operation, and their awareness. What I want you to do when you come to my workshop is I want you to be thinking about your farm business, and what it means to you, and what kind of work are you doing, what kind of risks are you facing, and how are you addressing them through your agricultural practices. And it's free. So, when you come, whether your focus is on the environment or the focus is on the biosecurity risks that you have on your operation, you're going to be assessing them. You're going to learn what is it you're facing, what are some issues you may come into. You're going to identify what you're doing to mitigate those risks, and you're going to create action plans for your farm that work with how you manage your operation. The first one we have here is environmental farm plan. I'm asking you to think about your farm in terms of your farming practices, the characteristics of your soil, and your farming practices and your topography. How does your topography and the characteristics of your soil influenced by your farming practices? You're thinking soil health and water quality. The next one I want to talk to you a bit about is biosecurity. So biosecurity for me means that you keep the things that are good within the boundaries of your farm operation and your practices, and you're working to keep the things that are bad away from your farm and your farming practices. It is it's commodity specific, so there's different workshops depending on your commodity. We have generic livestock, poultry, mink, bees, and crops. And the one thing I'd like to share with you, because I primarily cover Lambton Kent Essex, and especially as you get into Kent Essex, it's more heavily cash crop focused And they tend to not think particularly about biosecurity from a crops perspective. And I'm going to show you some examples, some projects I have, and some ways that you can be thinking about your farm operation. I'd also like to point out that if you're livestock, you're probably growing some feed for those livestock, and you will have crops. So you'll need a livestock certificate, biosecurity workshop, and a crop. And that will allow you to access some of that funding that's available that deals with animal health and plant health. That's duck number one, the webinar, your education process. Duck number two is getting your premises ID. Who in this room has a premise ID? Yep, a few. Everyone should have a premise ID for their farm operation, and more importantly, you should be thinking about having a premise ID for every farm that you own and is part of your business. So that could be more than one. Premises ID, and if you have a premise ID, if you know that you've had it for more than a year, and you get this through Agricor, so this is the information here, right? Register it in premises, or you can update the registration. Effectively, what a premise ID is, a little bit started as the government's traceability system. So it started with the turkey farmers, and it was able to identify where there was farms if there was a disease outbreak of avian flu. Right? So what I'm encouraging you to do is make sure that every farm that you have has a premise ID, and then I encourage you to make sure that your premise ID is current. You need to contact Agricor and find out that your premise ID is indeed valid. And if you're going to ask me why, then I'm going to suggest that you ask Agricor why they're having it this way. But this is what's happened if you submit your application for a project and the premise ID is checked by Soil and Crop at the time, and it needs to be valid and current in order for you to be successful with your project. This is the suite of cost share programs that are coming up through through Soil and Crop, being delivered by Soil and Crop. So you can see the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership, On-Farm Climate Action Fund, so that's called OFA for short, Species at Risk, and SAR, which is SARFIP, and SARPAL, which is Species at Risk Partnership on Agricultural Land. So there's four basic pillars here, that programs that we're going to be offering. Species at risk, the SARPAL, so those again is Partnership on Agricultural Land. One way you can tell the difference between these projects is who is fundamentally funding them. And you can look here and see it's Environment Climate Action Fund, so that's a federal program. Whoever's delivering the cost share funding for these programs or is offering the funding for them is typically a different government agency. They will have different focuses and things that they want. In this one, basically in this one, you can have it's on agricultural land. So if you own agricultural land and you want to do a project in terms of species at risk and helping create habitat, for example, then you don't necessarily have to have a farm business registration. You can just be on that agricultural land. SARFIP, however, is a provincial program. The funding has come provincially. They're very similar programs, but you do have to have that farm business registration number. In both of these circumstances, if you're going to apply for funding under here, you need to have your environmental farm plan certificate. So we'll be calling you to get a workshop if you're looking to do some of those projects. The Sustainable Canadian Ag Partnership is a new 5-year initiative. It's a federal, provincial, territorial project. So basically, we're looking at strengthening competitiveness and improving the resiliency of agriculture, agri-food, and agri-based projects and products sector. It is the follow-up to the Canadian Agricultural Partnership, which ended on March 31st, so that for the next 5 years, you're going to be hearing a lot about sustainability in agriculture. The first cost share piece that is available right now, there is an intake on September 15th, so that's not very far away. It is the Honeybee Health Initiative. So if you have beekeeping colonies and you're having producing honey, then there is some cost share funding available for you beginning September 15th. As part of the Sustainable Canadian Egg Partnership, there is the Agricultural Stewardship Initiative. So far, this program and the next one I'm going to discuss is I do not have right now specific details of what exactly is being covered in that. We're waiting for that information to come. But what I can tell you is the Agricultural Stewardship Initiative is having an intake opening at 9 a.m. on September 15th and closing at 5 p.m. on September 28th. So we're still waiting for information about what those projects are. Your job in the meantime is to be ready. You need to be ready by having the 4th edition E2P completed with the certificate. And if you're in what used to be called the Leeds area, is now called the Farmland Health Checkup area. It's a geographic area, and I'm going to show you the map. It's not the entirety of Lambton County, but I'll show you where the boundaries are, is you have opportunities by having a farmland health checkup to potentially increase your percentage of cost share funding. So I'm encouraging you to get your farmland health checkup done, your environmental farmland done, your premise ID in place, so that you're ready to go on September 15th. This is the farmland health checkup area. You can see with Lambton County, there's a bit of a dip here below the 402, and it's basically, this is the entire area that is draining into Lake St. Clair, the St. Clair River, and Lake Erie. And that's why it was, if you're in this area, there's an interactive map on our website. If you put your address in, it will show up green on the screen, and then you know you're good to go. If you turn up white, then you're just outside the area. You can still apply for programs. You just won't have that extra percentage possibility of getting funding. The Resilient Agricultural Landscape Program. We're anticipating a fall intake for this program. We don't have exact dates and we don't have exact details, but again, it's focused on reducing greenhouse gas emission and carbon sequestration, and again, in the 4th edition EFP report. On-Farm Climate Action Fund. So again, this is a federal program that came out last year. We had 2 intakes. We're again are anticipating that that's going to come forward, and we've heard news today from the government that it will be continuing forward. And so we'd like you to stay in tune to find that information. One thing that comes out of this program is part of your to do your project, but you're also to attend a knowledge sharing event. And the one reason I'm sharing this with you is that in order to get your claim and your cost share funding, you have to attend this. But I'm going to suggest to you that if you look on our calendar, it doesn't mean that no one else can participate in these knowledge sharing events. And I would encourage you, and what I discovered about some of our farmers that were going to these knowledge sharing events is that with such great information, they can be online and they can be in person. We have a calendar on our website that lets you find them, but they were continuing on to find other ones to get more and more information. It has been about nitrogen management, rotational grazing, and cover crops, and they've been really excellent information. This is where you can stay up to date. This is your 3rd duck here. It is way to stay up on your date is to access the mailing information, the email thing. You enter your first name, your last name, your email address, you hit send, and you will be able to get up-to-date emails about what is happening with our programs, when things are opening, when information is available, and it's a quick and easy way for you to stay current with what's being offered by Ontario Soil and Crop. You can also go on our website, on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube to get more information. So here's my ducks. What's one of my ducks? Anybody?
Mallard.
Workshops. We got the workshop duck, EFP and biosecurity. I got the farmland health checkup duck. I've got the premise IDs, remember to do it for all of your farms, and sign up for the mailing list, okay? That's your 4 ducks. Call me, text me, email me. I've got a bunch of business cards here. I'm happy to take your call, your email, or your text and help you get started. These are the available workshops that we have right now. I'm running one in Alvingston starting next Thursday, and the next Thursday, they're 2-day workshops. I start talking at 10 on the first day, I stop talking at 3, you go home, you do your binder, you come back the next week, and I start talking at 10, and I stop talking at noon. So it's 2-day workshops. This one here, this in-person livestock biosecurity, it is being held in Appin on September 18th from 1 till 4:30. Margaret May will be running that as the sort of host, if you like, but there is a veterinarian there that does the technical support in that. So it's your opportunity to talk to a veterinarian for free about your farm business and with a focus on biosecurity. The online crops and horticulture one is on the 8th and the 15th, and those will be running from 10 until noon online. So I encourage you to get those in place and be ready. And I'm going to leave this up here in case someone wants to take a picture of it. And thanks very much for your time.
Okay, I didn't say they left the best to the last, but I am the last speaker this evening, so we're going to try and get this done and over with for you quick. The purpose of this portion of the meeting is to elect policy advisory committee representatives and delegates to the OFA annual general meeting. As Crispin had mentioned, the meeting's being held November 21st and 22nd in Toronto at the Doubletree Hotel near the airport. So to be eligible for those representatives and delegates, you must be a current OFA member residing in Lambton County. And there's 1 vote allowed per membership or per FBR number. Copies of last year's minutes were sent via email to those who had pre-registered for this meeting tonight. So were there any questions? Everybody by chance review them, and if you have any questions, please let us know. Otherwise, could I get a motion to approve the minutes from the previous year? Gary? And a seconder?
Gary Burton.
Gary? All in favor? Opposed? And carried. All right, so the Policy Advisory Committee, the responsibility of those representatives, basically your duties will start at the conclusion of this year's OFA AGM. As a PAC member, you'll be expected to attend the meetings, approximately 3 meetings per year. You will be the communication between the OFA board and the grassroots members. So each county is allowed 1 PAC representative per 800 members, and so for Lambton County, tonight we'll be electing 3 representatives. So at this time, I'd like to appoint 2 people as scrutineers if there is a vote required. So we have Paul Nairn. Paul is the Western Ontario manager for the OFA, so he basically looks after all the MSRs, member service reps from Highway 400 West. And we also have Margaret Vincent, so another MSR, and you are in Grey Bruce counties. So. All right, so.
You need a motion for that?
Do what?
Motion to appoint the scrutineers?
Oh, pardon me, I'm kind of new at this. Can I have a motion to appoint the scrutineers?
Gary Gary Martin, I so move.
And the seconder, Bert. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, you want to run your computer, Margaret? So for PAC representatives, as I mentioned, we are electing 3 this evening. And I believe Gary Martin has put his name forward, as well as Brian Eves. At this time, I'll open the floor for nominations. So are there any nominations for PAC representatives? So nominated by Harry George Dickinson. Second call for nominations from the floor. And final call for the nominations, for nominations from the floor. Okay, I'd like to declare the nominations closed. We have 3 nominations for 3 positions. I'm supposed to ask. George, do you accept your nomination?
I'll take my nomination.
Yes, and Brian, you put your name forward and Gary's put their name forward. So, again, so we have 3 representatives for 3 positions. All right, so we'll do the same process for the delegates for the AGM.
Karen,
Yes?
should we have we usually have an alternate.
Yeah, I do that last. At least that's what I was told. Yeah, I do that last.
We've been doing the alternates last, but it's PAC, then delegates, then alternates.
Okay, again, I've only been here 6 months, so I believe that I'm a newbie, so. All right, so we'll do the delegates to the AGM.
You can self-nominate if you believe.
Yes, I do. And we've had 1 person put their name forward, Julie Ma. I'll open the floor for nominations. Are there any nominations for delegates to the AGM?
I'll nominate Karen Hedler.
Okay, so George is nominating Harry. Second call for nominations.
I'll nominate
Cassie Van
Okay,
Engelen.
so Harry nominates Cassie Van Engelen.
She is not here tonight, but he has a text.
Okay, yeah, got it ready. Okay, and final call for nominations for the AGM delegates.
Well, we need one more. I'll nominate Fraser Mead said he would.
So George nominates Fraser Beatty. B-A-B-E-A-T-T-Y.
CPQ's Don McLuhan's experience, there's I like to nominate him.
Okay, so Bert nominates Don McGugan. And I believe we have 9 positions open for delegates, so
I'll
anyone,
nominate Bert McKinley.
George's son nominates Bert McKinley. Okay, so final call for nominations.
I'll nominate Jim Elliott.
Which Elliott? Sorry?
Jim.
Tim Elliott. Jim Elliott, my mistake. Any further nominations? And I declare the nominations closed. So if we have the list, Jim Elliott, do you have writing that he is willing to stand?
I'd like to thank my nominator, but I decline.
Okay. Bert McKinley?
I'll thank my nominator and I will thank.
AY.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll fix it later. Don We appreciate that. Fraser, you've got writing?
Yes.
And Cassie Van England, we have it in writing?
Yes.
Okay, and Harry Van Buren. Okay, and Julie Long, we have it in writing. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, because Jim's name's gonna be off. Okay, so we have 6 for 9 positions. Oh, I know there's something I have to do here. Oh no, I think I'm good. All right,
Fill it up next meeting, or
what's that?
you do this individually, filling up the next meeting? Or-
Yeah. Okay, so the next part is the alternates. So we need 2 alternates.
This is all that's for PAC.
Alternates for both, right? For both PAC, so Policy Advisory Committee, as well as the AGM. I'll now open the floor for nominations.
Yeah, but you do it separate, right, Karen?
No, I was told not.
Yeah, the process is the alternates can either go as an alternate for PAC, or they can be an alternate as a delegate. So wherever the need is, so this person or persons could be needed as PAC or as AGM delegate.
In the past, like, so what you're saying then is somebody that's down as a delegate can't be an alternate for PAC in you doing it this way. Whereas if you have it separate, you could put, like, somebody can be an alternate for PAC that is going to as a delegate.
Yeah, and the actuality, how it works, George, and I recognize there's a bit of a difference there, is that if you're needing somebody to go to PAC, what generally happens, even if they're not named as an alternate, you send somebody. So we like to have some alternates listed for the sake of the secretaries and the administrators, so they have their names already in our system. So if you're a delegate and you end up being an alternate to attend a PAC meeting, your information is already in the system as representing Lambton. Okay? So really we're looking
a
for...
lot cleaner if you have it.
Yeah.
That's only mine.
Yeah. But if there's folks here that don't, at this point, don't want to commit to either PAC or a delegate to convention, this is kind of the category for those folks. Okay?
So I'll declare the floor open for nominations. Are there any nominations for alternates? Second call for alternates? And third call for alternates. Now, the motion to,
I'll nominate Mark Colette.
sorry, could you speak up, Agnes?
I'll nominate Mark Colette.
Mark Colette. Do we have that in writing?
No.
What was he there? Final call for nominations. And nominations are closed. So Mark, would you stand as an alternate?
I'm advancing my nomination.
So could I get a motion allowing the board to appoint people to PAC or the AGM on behalf? George, can I get a seconder?
Gary Martin.
Gary? All in favor? Opposed? And carried. Could I also get a nomination to destroy all the ballots? Didn't have to go. All right, so thanks everyone who put their names forward for the 2 events, the PAC and the AGM. We obviously really appreciate your time and effort that it takes to attend these events and represent the grassroots of Lambton County. So thank you everyone.
Okay, so it's the PAC members from last year are the three, so that would be Brian, Mary, and Darcy. They are delegates to this year.
Yes.
So, in which case, I'm not a delegate to the convention then?
Not yet. Depending on
Well,
your
you've already
delegation
closed.
does.
So you closed it.
You're back over.
The motion for the county federation.
But is that not correct how it works, Paul?
Yeah, the current PAC will this year, and new PAC, if they wish to go to convention, would have to be elected as a delegate. So there's 3 spots, I guess, delegate positions that are open, so LFA can appoint yours as one of those spots.
Okay, we got one last item to cover, and that is any resolutions we would like to bring forward to the AGM. Does anyone have any items that they'd like to bring forward as resolution?
We also have a PAC meeting on September 6th. Do you have any
I should
questions?
make note that yes, there is an upcoming policy advisory committee on September 6th. And there's any issues that we can bring forward to that.
County issues.
Second call, is there any resolutions that would like to be brought forward? Final call, any other further resolutions? So at this point, I'd like to ask if there's any further feedback. Any comments you'd like to make? Any suggestions, questions? Yes, Joanne.
I have a question about wellness initiative and contract. Is it something that you apply for, or is it just automatically assigned, or?
Kristen,
Because
did you
I'm
want
very
to?
disappointed that
So-
you're not running it, and Joanne did a fantastic job to a lot of initiatives.
I'm going to put a couple of words in Kristen's mouth, but I think what has happened here was, so the question is that why did the Farmer Wellness Initiative contract not be renewed?
That was a decision of the provincial government that they just decided they wanted to look for somebody else to do the communication end of it. OFA can apply, I don't know that it will at this point, but it was a decision by the provincial government to choose a different communicator.
But Kristen, I mean, Joanne's still doing the job.
No, Joanne's no longer doing the job. Joanne, the contract was terminated effective, I think it was around mid-July, something like that. I'm not sure offhand. But it was terminated. Joanne's just wrapping up the loose ends that she has left to complete the farm wellness program from a communication standpoint, and then the provincial government will be looking for someone else. Joanne is certainly remaining with the OFA, but she will be taking on another capacity.
I just was mostly asking if there's opportunities to apply for it. Like, was it an ability that they put it out there and there's opportunities? Because I guess what I'm saying, it was a really great program, she did a fantastic job of promoting it. And I'm just saying, if there is opportunities to apply for it, I encourage you to apply for it.
The program is continuing, first of all. As to how it gets redone, we would have to contact the provincial government, because all I can tell you is I understand that they have contacted some other organizations who act as a conduit for the program. Who they are, I have no idea, and that's what I've heard. What I've heard may not be necessarily factual.
So is it is a targeted program for agriculture?
Absolutely, it's still the farmer wellness program.
Yeah, so it will be someone who's able to advocate for it or encourage farmers to take advantage of it.
Presumably, yes, but you have to ask that question of the federal government, provincial governments, it's the overseers.
If I may, we as member service reps, if we encounter someone that calls in that we believe that line, we will still definitely be encouraging use of the line. It's just the official capacity
question, Joanne. I'd just like to make one more call. If there's any other resolutions, any other comments that you'd like to bring forward to the board. Seeing none, I guess I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Gary Hart.
Gary Martin, and I'll take Joe Dickinson as a seconder. Non-votable motion, anyone opposed? Thanks very much. Just one thing I should have mentioned before, that we do have our S&D sign trade-in, if you haven't taken advantage of that. And the other thing is we've got lots of signs. Oh, go for it. We do have lots of signs. There are signs, there is OFA items here. Yes, I guess we have a door question.
Morgan Baskins, and nope, she's gone.
Oh, okay.
Rob Annis, and Rob's still here. I said Joanne, so I see Rob. Joanne, is Rob here? Is Rob here? Yeah. You are, hey, remember?
Congratulations. I want to thank everybody for attending. Appreciate the attendance, and feel free to have a drink at the bar. Thank you very much.